When Street Fighter II arrived in arcades in 1991, it was an undeniable success for Capcom. The arcade game would go on to spawn numerous updates and spin-offs which led to the rise of numerous fans of the franchise. With the ever-growing interest in the Street Fighter franchise and its success in the video game industry, it wouldn't be long before the game's characters would appear in other forms of entertainment. The first time this was seen was in the 1993 Hong Kong film Future Cops. It was an action comedy film that featured many characters that looked similar to the ones in Street Fighter II. However, the plot of the movie had nothing related to the video game its characters were clearly imitating. Despite some crazy fight sequences and an all-star cast of Hong Kong actors, the movie is mostly remembered for being a complete rip-off of Street Fighter and one of the worst movies to ever make reference to the franchise. While it was the first time Street Fighter characters were depicted in a live-action film, it wouldn't be the last. In fact, just 2 weeks later, this was seen again in the film City Hunter. The movie is based on the manga series of the same name and features Jackie Chan in the lead role. During a particular scene in the movie, Jackie Chan's character runs into an arcade where two guys are seen playing Street Fighter II. He meets up with them again while fighting a thug who throws him onto one of the arcade machines. Then for some reason the thug transforms into Ken and fights Jackie Chan, who then becomes E Honda. Soon the other two guys transform into Guile and Dhalsim. The scene reaches its peak when Jackie Chan reappears as Chun-Li. The entire scene had no direct connection to the plot of the movie, but instead served as a parody of the fighting game. While the film itself didn't become widely known, many people began to become aware of this spoof when it appeared on the internet. And today, many fans consider it to be one of the best spoofs of Street Fighter and one of Jackie Chan's greatest moments.
Like you said.
Alright.
In 1994, Capcom partnered with Group Taku to release Street Fighter II, the animated movie. While the film featured all the characters in Super Turbo, the story focused on only a handful of them and introduced a new plot based on the game. M. Bison is now the head of the terrorist organization known as Shadow Law, which kidnaps fighters from around the world and brainwashes them into carrying out assassinations. His main lieutenants consist of Balrog, Vega, and Sagat. Chun-Li is an Interpol agent who seeks the help of Guile in taking down M. Bison, both for professional and personal reasons. Meanwhile, Ryu is traversing the Asian continent in search of battle, while Ken, his old friend and training partner, does the same in the US. When M. Bison becomes aware of their fighting abilities, Ken becomes brainwashed by M. Bison and is forced to do battle with Ryu. Eventually, Ken manages to recover his memory and a 2-on-1 battle ensues against M. Bison. Street Fighter II, the animated movie, was well received by fans of the game. It was praised for its realistic action sequences and faithful treatment of the source material. While the movie was originally based on the video game, the success of the film inspired Capcom to create the Street Fighter Alpha series, which fleshed out the backstory of many of the characters. Many elements originating from the movie would continue to show up in future games, such as M. Bison's more muscular appearance, Ken's longer hair, and the origin of Ryu's headband. 2 versions of the film were released by Manga Entertainment on VHS and Laserdisc in 1995. One version was rated PG-13, while the other unrated version was noted for featuring more violence, profanity, and a more revealing shower scene with Chun-Li. Another version of the film was added into the Street Fighter Anniversary Collection as a bonus feature. In 2006, a DVD version was released that featured both the Japanese and Western versions of the film in their original uncut forms. An interactive movie game based on the film was released by Capcom for the PlayStation and Sega Saturn in 1995, as well as a manga adaptation which was published as a 6-issue comic in 1996. Meanwhile, all over the world, the Street Fighter craze continued to skyrocket in and out of arcades, and Capcom was there to capitalize on it. The Street Fighter franchise began expanding into all kinds of merchandise, particularly in Japan and the United States. While Japan produced anime and manga that would go on to influence Capcom's future directions for the franchise, the United States produced a bevy of merchandise aimed towards Street Fighter's younger fans. There was a comic book series published by Malibu Comics that only lasted for 3 issues, a 3D motion theater ride that showed up in certain amusement parks, an action figure toy line established by Hasbro under the G.I. Joe name, and even a tabletop role-playing game published by White Wolf. Eventually, in 1994, Universal Pictures signed a deal with Capcom to produce a live-action film. The movie focused on Guile, who was played by Jean-Claude Van Damme. The rest of the characters from Street Fighter were in the film, but mostly had roles that were either insignificant or nothing like their video game counterparts. One of the big changes from the video games was the fact that Guile's friend Charlie was transformed into the character Blanca. The other noted actor in the film was Raul Julia, who starred as M. Bison. Raul Julia was considered one of the greatest actors of his time, starring in many great films in his life.
How could we continue to speak against violence when they keep killing the people that we love? And even you admit we have the right to defend ourselves. You're not defending! You're attacking! And you'll lose God! Just as they have! Has the planet gone mad? My brother, passion's hostage. I seek justice. Denied. I shall not submit. I shall conquer. I shall rise. My name is Gomez Adams, and I have seen evil. I have seen all this, officer. But until today, I had never seen you.
Hook 'em, book 'em, cook 'em.
Now!
It has been rumored that he chose to star in this particular film at the request of his children. Unfortunately, this film role would be one of his last as he died from a stroke shortly before its release. Despite the filmmaker's efforts to include as many references to the video game as possible, the movie's story dramatically veers away from most of the source material. In the movie, M. Bison is a drug lord turned general who is holding relief workers hostage in the fictional nation known as Shadowloo and demands a $20 billion ransom for their release or else he will kill them. So, Guile, the regional commander of the Allied nations, fights to stop him alongside other notable Street Fighter characters. When the film was released in theaters, it was met with mostly negative reviews from critics and fans of the games.
But why?
The movie felt like it was rushed to capitalize on Street Fighter's success and suffered from bad acting, horrible casting decisions, and awful fight sequences.
It sucks.
Of all the performances, the only one that many felt stood out to be decent was Raul Julia's M. Bison.
Of course!
Still, the movie was a disappointment because it failed at being a good representation of the video game. Today, the film is mostly remembered for being a prime example of how not to make a movie based on a video game.
Let's not quibble over a definition.
For some, one of the few redeeming qualities of this film was the title song Straight to My Feet, performed by MC Hammer and Deion Sanders.
Straight to my feet. When you feel the beat, you gotta move. Straight to my feet. Straight to my feet. Can you feel me? Can you feel me? Straight to my feet. When you feel the beat, you gotta move.
I'm feeling this funk like four flat tires, pumping it higher.
The roof's on fire.
The homies ain't tired.
It's my desire.
To break it off, fool, but you can't tell, cause I hit the beat first in its own. Yeah, strictly for my homies not down with the front game, straight to the floor, we pump it up, man. I'm grabbing me a freak and I'm stripping my feet, yeah.
Despite the negative feedback that came with the movie, Street Fighter the movie was a commercial hit, making almost $100 million in profit worldwide.
You got paid?
On June 1995, Capcom released an arcade fighting game based on the live-action film. It was developed by Incredible Technologies and used digitized images of the film's cast to portray the characters in the game. This arcade game is considered one of the worst games based on the Street Fighter franchise and a poor attempt at imitating the Mortal Kombat series and its graphics design. However, when the game was ported to the PlayStation and Sega Saturn a couple months later, Capcom changed the game mechanics to play similar to Super Turbo, which made it a much more competent fighting game. The console versions also featured a forgettable story-based mode where players could play through the plot of the movie. Despite Capcom's efforts to fix the game mechanics, the game failed to be a success, most likely due to the fact that it was based on the film which many Street Fighter fans hated at the time.
Game over!
Meanwhile, back in Japan, Capcom continued their partnership with Group Taku to release an anime series based on Street Fighter II titled Street Fighter II-V. Compared to the animated film that came before it, the show is a much more loose adaptation of Street Fighter II, taking several liberties with the previously established storyline and characters from the games. Street Fighter II-V focuses on the adventures of a young Ryu and Ken as they go through a journey to improve their martial arts skills. Along the way, they befriend many other familiar Street Fighter characters as well as face off against numerous adversaries and villains like M. Bison. While Street Fighter II-V could easily be seen as another way Capcom cashed in on their success with the video game, the show had respectable merits of its own. For instance, the plot of the show was developed well enough to work independently from the video games. It established a new and different perspective that allowed the characters to be more human compared to their typically considered over-the-top video game counterparts. And at the same time, it paid homage to the source material by developing the Street Fighter characters and universe in a way that fans of the video game as well as newcomers to the franchise could appreciate. The show ran for 29 episodes from April to November in Japan in 1995. An English adaptation was produced by Manga Entertainment in 1996 on VHS and eventually on DVD. Around the same time in the US, Capcom continued to extend its fighting game franchise by partnering with Envision Entertainment to create an animated TV series that ran on the USA Network. The premise for the show borrowed elements from the 1994 live-action film but stayed closer to the storylines created in the video games. Once again, Guile is the main protagonist, but this time he commands a group of international crime fighters called the Street Fighters who battle against the criminal empire known as Shadowloo, run by Bison. The show mainly featured characters from Street Fighter II, but would also have character appearances from Street Fighter Alpha and Final Fight. Today, the Street Fighter TV series is widely remembered for its flaws rather than its merits. The characters and plotlines were typically generic, the animation ranged from noticeably inconsistent to downright terrible, and the writing consisted of numerous lines that were so bad they came off as either hilarious or just strange.
What do you want from me, Bison? My lunch money?
Oh, Guile, that color is you!
So, mate, how's it feel to be on the receiving end for a change?
Because of this, the show didn't last or have much of a following compared to other cartoons during the 90s.
Why does this always happen?
Like many shows based on video games at the time, many fans believed the Street Fighter TV show wasn't given the proper treatment the franchise deserved, and ultimately felt like another cheap cash-in by Capcom.
You're always looking to make a quick buck, Masters.
Even so, the TV series ran for 2 seasons, consisting of 26 episodes from 1995 to 1997. 6 years after the show aired on TV, it was released on DVD in April and May of 2003.